The sleek diplomatic shuttle glided low over New Houston, capital of the United Earth Federation. Skyscrapers stretched towards the clouds, monuments to humanity's indomitable spirit. Sleek vehicles buzzed between megastructures like insects, underscoring the frenetic energy pulsing through this bustling metropolis. My destination was a nondescript building nestled among these towering giants. Within lay the halls of the Federation, where leaders from all corners of Earth gathered to receive their alien visitor, me. I steadied my nerves as the shuttle pierced the atmosphere. Despite numerous prior visits, returning to humanity's homeworld always felt momentous, and today especially so. The shuttle settled atop a tower landing pad. I gathered my satchel and strode down the exit ramp, taking a deep breath. The cool air held a metallic tang, so unlike the sweet mountain breezes of my distant home. Earth's elderly sun warmed my azure cheeks. I straightened my brocade tunic, ensuring the silver ambassadorial crest sat properly upon my chest, then started across the rooftop. My time here would prove brief but momentous. As Ambassador Plenipotentiary of the United Planets, it was my duty to formally invite species demonstrating exceptional promise, and humanity, though still an adolescent race by galactic standards, had progressed at an astonishing pace. My recommendation today would set their course among the stars for millennia hence. The enormity of this responsibility weighed upon my slender shoulders, but a more pressing concern quickly seized my thoughts. My empty stomach. Preoccupied with preparations, I had neglected to eat since leaving Delta Centauri, an unwise oversight given the local cuisine. I resolved to find some modest repast before entering the halls of power. I stepped from the lift into a bustling concourse, dotted with shops and kiosks. An array of scents, both savory and strange, greeted me. My mouth watered as I hurried toward the largest market, adorned with holograms advertising exotic foods from across Earth and beyond. As I entered, nearby conversations muted, and all eyes turned my way, fixing upon my alien features, my azure skin and gently tapered ears that marked me as Xandari. Their expressions ran the gamut from starstruck to wary, but all emanated a pungent musk of uncertainty. I offered a few tentative smiles meant to reassure, but my presence brought the frenetic pace to a halt, so I averted my gaze and wound deeper into the market, allowing shoppers to resume their business. My satchel brushed bins overflowing with colorful and often unrecognizable fruits and vegetables. One bin held a pile of yellow golden spheres, each perfectly fist-sized. They appeared innocuous enough. I selected one and brought it to the payment kiosk, hoping to quickly conclude my awkward transaction. The attendant, a haggard man with a permanent scowl, glared at my offering. 2 credits, he grunted. My smile faltered momentarily. Of course, I'd read of these shops that exchange currency for goods, a peculiar custom since among my people, community needs superseded notions of profit. I offered a gracious bow, hoping to recover diplomatically. Pardon my ignorance of your commercial customs. I am an ambassador of the United Planets, arrived to meet with your world leaders. Might you give me this small provision? His scowl only deepened. Yeah, well, this ain't an embassy. No money, no food. He crossed his arms. 2 credits. I bristled at his callous tone, so undiplomatic. Where was the deference due my station? But I mastered my pique. As ambassador, I must rise above this man's naked avarice. Good sir, please let me explain. I kept my tone civil through gritted teeth. In my culture, food is freely given to any who hunger. It is our duty to provide for one another. I punctuated this with another gracious smile, but rather than inspiring the shopkeeper's better nature, his face only hardened until it resembled weathered granite. Listen, E.T. He jabbed an accusing finger. I got a business to run here. These supplies cost me money. Now you going to pay up or get lost? My gracious facade cracked. So, this knave cared more for profits than basic morality. Still, I must endure. This odious man is beneath my rank. Please accept my apology for this cultural misunderstanding. I offered a perfunctory bow. I humbly request, in the spirit of hospitality, that you gift me this small provision." The shopkeeper's complexion shifted from granite to volcanic rage. "What are you, deaf?" I said, "No free handouts." He leaned across the kiosk, bellowing, "Now pay up or scram." My vision washed red with fury. Never had I endured such disrespect. This immoral trade offends all principles of common decency. I trembled, barely containing my blistering diatribe against his greed. But suddenly, a small voice gave me pause. "Here, mister. You can have my credits." I turned to behold a human child gazing up with large, imploring eyes. She appeared no more than 5 years old by their reckoning. Over her tattered shirt and pants hung a threadbare cloak. Her delicate hand held up 2 small metal discs. My anger evaporated instantly. Without hesitation, I closed the little one's fingers over her meager wealth and gently pushed her hand back. "Dear child, your kindness humbles me." I sank to one knee before her. "But I cannot claim what is yours." Her baby face clouded with worry. "But how will you eat?" My heart clenched. I tenderly cradled her fragile hand between both of mine. "Thanks to you, I have already been fed, for your generosity nourishes far more than any mere food." Profoundly moved, I unpinned the silver brooch from my tunic, an heirloom passed down through generations. The delicate sigil embodied the highest ideals of my people. I pressed the treasure into the child's hand, closing her tiny fingers over the priceless gift. "Please accept this humble token, that you may remember kindness knows no boundaries." The sweet child gifted me the most radiant of smiles before scurrying off into the bustle, clutching the brooch as though it were solid starlight. I rose slowly, turning to regard the shopkeeper through newly opened eyes. Behind his stony facade, I now perceived his own inner light, diminished and flickering, fainter with each passing year, yet still aglow. Perhaps now, I might rekindle that fragile flame. I offered him a gracious bow, born not of obligation, but true respect. "I thank you for today's humility lesson. May we meet again in better times." I exited the shop, unburdened. Though my stomach still grumbled, no matter. My spirit had been nourished, and newfound hope and conviction fueled my steps toward the towering Federation Hall. I was passing a sculpture garden when a stern voice halted my stride. "You there. This area is restricted." 2 Terran security officers approached, hands hovering near holstered shock batons. The taller officer looked me over with naked suspicion. "State your business." I offered a polite bow. "Good greetings, officers. I am Xandear, Ambassador Plenipotentiary of the United Planets. I've come to meet with your leaders." The officers exchanged skeptical glances. The shorter one spoke brusquely. "Let's see some identification." Of course. I retrieved a silver disc from my satchel and offered it up. My diplomatic credentials. The officer scanned the disc. As he read the display, his eyes widened in surprise. Then he returned the disc with a sharp nod. "Our sincere apologies, Ambassador. We were unaware of any visiting delegation." "Think nothing of it." I smiled diplomatically as I replaced the disc. "Your vigilance does you credit." The officers shuffled, appearing chastened. The tall one spoke hesitantly. "If I may ask, is the Alliance considering allowing humans to join?" I raised an eyebrow, impressed by their knowledge. "You know of our organization?" "Of course," he nodded vigorously. "We've awaited this for years. It would be a great day for Earth to join the galactic community." His partner's face lit up with naked hope. "Does this mean we finally have a seat at the table?" I studied the 2 officers with newfound respect. Here stood the true heart of humanity. Not her leaders awaiting my verdict, but everyday citizens who dared to dream. They sought not conquest and riches, but fellowship among the stars. How could I deny them? "Officers, nothing would honor me more." I met each man's gaze in turn, than to welcome your people into our fold this very day. "Truly." The tall officer grasped my hand excitedly. "That's incredible news. Bless you, Ambassador. All Earth's children will now grow up citizens of the galaxy." His partner likewise shook my hand with profound gratitude. As we exchanged enthusiastic farewells, warmth suffused my being. Their passion and optimism sparked a flame of possibility within my breast. Perhaps we together could temper humanity's baser instincts and guide their first steps upon the galactic stage. I arrived at Federation headquarters, buoyant with hope. The rich and powerful of Earth aligned to meet me, resplendent in hand-tailored suits costing months of common wages. But despite the pomp, my thoughts lingered on the orphan girl's selflessness and those officers' naked yearning. For in their common hearts, humanity's true potential resided. As the leaders guided me inside, I discerned the smiles of hungry jackals behind their polished manners and honeyed words. These craved only greater wealth and influence, but they were not the dreamers who would shape the centuries to come. No, the common people held the power to redeem humanity, if given the chance, and this day I would deliver them that opportunity. I settled before the assembly, adopting a sincere yet dignified air. As the leaders gave their grandiose speeches about unprecedented prosperity and strengthening global cooperation, I discerned the rotten core beneath their honeyed facade, and I knew precisely my course. When the time came, I rose before that sea of vapid smiles and venal hearts. As I opened my mouth, firm conviction rang from my words. Esteemed leaders of Earth, long have you awaited this day, when your world takes its rightful place among the stars. Therefore, it is my honor and privilege to extend this formal invitation for humanity to join the United Planets. A stunned silence greeted my pronouncement. Had I slapped these peacocks in their collective faces, the reaction could not have been more dramatic. All diplomatic pretenses fell away, exposing naked hunger and burning ambition in their eyes. For prestige beyond imagining now dangled before them, ripe for the plucking. As the reality sank in, thunderous cheers shook the hall. The leaders rose in a tidal wave of applause and frenzied shouts. They surged forward to pump my hand, pat my back, and bask in sudden glory. But I raised my hands, calling for order. Please, my friends, a moment more if you would. Curiosity tempered their ardor. The din quieted as they retook their seats, avid for what further boon I might bestow upon them. I swept my gaze across the hall, meeting the eyes of each leader in turn, those cold sharks in fine suits who sought only to exploit this honor for themselves. When I spoke, a whip crack of command rang in my voice. With membership comes grave responsibility. You now speak for all humanity among a galaxy of races far older and wiser. Therefore, I charge every citizen, from highest ruler to humblest laborer, to lay aside hostility and mistrust. Embrace fellow beings, whether strange or familiar, and nurture the spirit of fellowship and goodwill. I pierced the presumptive rulers before me with a fiery gaze. If you cannot lead in this manner, with compassion and moral courage, then you are unfit to guide Earth into the galactic community. A stunned pall hung over the hall. None dared speak in the wake of my brazen audacity. These elites were unaccustomed to such blunt words. Finally, a statesman from the African Confederacy stood, leveling an accusing finger. Just who do you think you are, lecturing this body? His voice shook with indignation. You overstep yourself, Ambassador. I nodded graciously to him. I am merely a servant of the United Planets, honorable delegate. It is my profound duty to ensure all members uphold our highest ideals. Justice with mercy, unity through diversity, and above all, peace among all peoples. Earth must embrace these principles from the outset or risk dire consequences. Chaos erupted. Shouts of outrage and "How dare you!" rang out. The African delegate stabbed an accusing finger, face mottled with rage. You threaten us. We will not tolerate such disrespect. He turned toward his colleagues. I call for this alien's immediate expulsion. A chorus of affirmations rose up. The leaders surged to their feet, bellowing condemnations. They closed ranks to present a unified front against the insolent creature who dared speak truth to power. I weathered the storm of self-righteous fury with stoic grace, but inside, I trembled. I had gambled all on the frayed hope that humanity yet retains some shred of virtue. Had I badly misjudged? For Earth's sake, I desperately prayed otherwise. The double doors groaned open. The assembly turned en masse to behold a strange procession filing into the rear of the hall. A dozen Terran security officers, led by two individuals far removed from the halls of power. One was a star-eyed youth, garbed in an ill-fitting officer's uniform. The other, a waif-like girl, clutching an alien brooch to her breast. The tall young officer stepped forward, clearing his throat. Pardon this interruption, he spoke haltingly, under the assembly's outraged glare. But we couldn't help but overhear. He gestured to the ornate ceiling, where several audio pickup grids were visible. I was an engineering tech assigned to this facility. I know every mic and camera in here. He offered a nervous, lopsided grin. Sorry for eavesdropping, Ambassador. The girl, her baby face grave, gazed up at me. What will happen to Earth if we get kicked out? Her voice rang clear as a bell in the cavernous chamber. Her innocent clarity pierced my heart. I beckoned them forward and knelt before the child. The United Planets would withdraw their invitation. Your world would be isolated, cut off from trade and fellowship with over 300 races. I regarded her tenderly. Why do you ask, little one? She clutched her cherished brooch. If we're all alone again, who will help us when the darkness comes? A pang of sorrow lanced my heart. I had not expected such wisdom and foresight in one so young. Gently, I squeezed her shoulder. Take courage, dear child. With compassion and courage, we shall face the darkness together. Her anxious eyes held mine, searching. Then she nodded firmly. We're not afraid. Profound courage shone from that innocent face. I gazed upon this waif, this girl child born without privilege or power, and glimpsed humanity's true heart. It was she, and dreamers like her who refused to surrender to cynicism and despair. I rose to address the silently fuming leadership. You have heard truth from innocent lips. Will you cast aside this child's hope for understanding between worlds? I extended a hand toward the girl. What future will you choose for her? The leaders shifted uncomfortably, their outrage tempered by shame. A few awkwardly cleared their throats or studied the floor. The African delegate, unwilling to meet my eyes, addressed the guards instead. Officer, remove these intruders at once. But the guards stood fast, united in steadfast solidarity with the ragtag idealists. The captain faced me and snapped a crisp salute. With respect, Ambassador, we choose to stand for the future. All our sons and daughters will inherit the consequences of this moment. He knelt beside the orphan girl, speaking with quiet conviction. We may struggle to see beyond ourselves, but we are not bereft of conscience. However buried or diminished, a spark yet remains for this child to kindle. He met the eyes of each leader in turn. Fan that spark. Give voice to our better angels, and watch miracles unfold. With a humble bow, he pressed the girl's hand. We place our trust in this little one, and in you. I raised the captain to his feet, then turned a piercing gaze upon the assembly. Well, who shall light this child's way? I extended my hand. Will you help guide Earth? The silence hung endless, unbreakable. Then, a stateswoman stood, her weathered face creased by a weary smile. In days past, I too held a young one's hand as we walked together into the future he would inherit. She moved to join the captain and child. I had forgotten the joy and responsibility of that walk, until today. One by one, they rose, some tentative, some tearful, and came forward. The circle widened to encompass rich and poor, old and young, men and women of varied races. They clasped the hands of those beside them until all stood together. Through smiles and tears, a new spirit kindled amongst them, and in that moment, I witnessed the true beating heart of Earth. Her people, imperfect yet striving, who dared risk building bridges among worlds. I raised my voice in profound tribute. You humble me beyond words. I am unspeakably honored to welcome shining souls like these among our fellowship. I offered a deep bow. Earth shall surely become the jewel in our united planet's crown. A sustained cheer shook the hall. Then the leaders dispersed, speaking in eager yet hushed tones about the future's breathtaking potential. The possibilities seemed endless. I felt a gentle tug at my sleeve. The orphan girl gazed up, anxiety still haunting her eyes. But when the darkness comes, will we stand together? I lifted her up and held her close, my heart breaking at her burdened innocence. You have awakened their spirits, little one. When shadows fall, their newly lit flames will shine all the brighter. I touched her brooch where it lay above her heart. And your light will ever guide them home. She gifted me that radiant smile which warmed my soul as she ran off to join the others. I watched Earth's future unfolding before me, a destiny far greater than I had dared hope. There would be struggle ahead, no doubt. Humanity's failings were woven into their character, aggression and tribalism encoded into their very DNA. Tempering those warring impulses would demand much arduous work. But on this day, hope triumphed over cynicism. Bonds now knit these leaders directly to the people they must serve. And if crisis came, perhaps those bonds would hold strong enough to keep humanity from rending itself asunder. I know only this. When darkness shrouds their skies, the united planets will stand shoulder to shoulder with Earth, and we will kindle every dying ember together until night passes into glorious dawn.